Lychees are hard to find, but they're my favorite. So I made a garden to see if I could turn grocery store lychees into my very own backyard plants and hopefully one day actually grow the fruit true to seed straight out my back door and never have to buy them again. Well, 4 years later, I'm here with an update. I started out with one set of lychees from Thailand and a second set of lychees from the USA. I wanted to grow them side by side to see which actually would grow true to seed, especially since the ones from the USA looked almost like they were synthetically grown in a lab. They were a lot smaller and they looked sort of fake, and they tasted a little bit weird. But the ones from Thailand looked and tasted out of this world, like they were picked straight from the tree. So I figured this would be a good experiment to start the lychee growing process by growing them side by side and eventually seeing whether or not they grow differently too. I started opening them all up, revealing the inner translucent fruit. You can even see there's a huge difference in the color of the fruit and the size of the seed. The Thailand fruit looked creamier and the seeds were huge, and they tasted exactly how a lychee should taste. Or lychee, don't come at me. Whereas the USA fruit was more translucent and gray, and the seeds were smaller and kind of oddly shriveled. Something in me immediately thought GMO fake. So I got both seeds on separate pieces of damp paper towel, sealed them up in their own little baggies, and the hardest part came. I waited for about 2 weeks. I let the seeds sit in the sun outside so they would potentially grow faster, especially since it was summer when I started. But finally, the weeks passed and I went to open up the USA paper towel first to reveal the seeds had sprouted and looked pretty good. They definitely looked like they were ready for soil. Some sprouts looked bigger than others, but I was content. But it was so weird because when I went to open up the Thailand bag, it looked like the squirrels or some sort of animal tried to eat the Thailand seeds or get into the bag somehow, which was only further proof based on the animals that the USA lychees may in fact be fake GMO lab-grown fruit because the squirrels didn't try to eat those seeds and basically they wanted nothing to do with them. So that was an interesting thing I noted during this experiment. The Thailand seeds looked kind of shriveled. It almost looked like a sprout was trying to come out but didn't really successfully grow, which was odd because these were the real deal. So wouldn't they grow better than the GMO? I'm not sure, but either way, I decided to wait another couple weeks and let them continue germinating in their little bags. And when those weeks passed, I went to check on them. First came USA. They looked even bigger than the last time, so I decided it was finally time to plant them in soil and see if they would grow. Then I checked on the Thailand lychees and saw that no progress was really made in the last 2 weeks, and the seeds still looked a little bit weird and shriveled. But I still decided to plant them in soil anyway to see if a home more moist would prompt them to grow more. I set them aside and waited some weeks, and soon it looked like we had a little sprout. But that's not what a lychee sprout looks like. I almost felt like chia seeds flew into the soil from the wind and started growing because that's what it looked like. Well, then a few more weeks passed and I ran into a big problem because all of my plants were being eaten from some mystery creature or creatures until one day I awoke to a strange sound in my backyard and upon further investigation found these raccoons munching on my plants, and in that moment I knew that those lychees were toast, dead and eaten. I hoped for the best and still kept them out there hoping a few survived, and as I did, I moved on to our second experiment because I knew I really needed to see this through and actually grow lychees in my very own backyard. This time I chose lychees from Thailand again, of course, removed the outer layer of skin, and opened them up to reveal nice looking, juicy, transparent fruit. I removed the fruit to reveal the inner seed and took many of those seeds and started germinating them on a damp piece of paper towel. After just 7 days, our lychee looked like this. And then another week passed and they looked like this. Week after week, they kept growing and getting bigger, and I was excited because these sprouts looked way better and way healthier than the last ones. Finally, they were ready for soil, and we could see if our dream would come true of growing lychees in my very own backyard. I planted some in soil and kept some in the paper towel, and as the ones in the paper towel continued to grow, I planted them in different pots so that we would have options and give a few different plants the chance to grow. Soon, weeks were passing, and I had lychee seeds growing out of my ears, and it was really exciting. One of the plants shot up pink leaves, and that was something I had never seen before. Really cute. As it continued to grow, the leaves eventually went from pink to green, and I soon noticed that we might have another problem because it looked like little critters were getting at the leaves and eating parts of them. In that moment, I decided to repot it into a bigger pot and keep it away from any potential critters with companion plants like cilantro and dill and garlic, and that seemed to work because little tiny baby leaves were starting to grow again, and they weren't being eaten by any little garden critters. The tiny sprout looked like a little fortune cookie, and soon that fortune cookie turned into a larger leaf, and like the few weeks prior, the leaves grew in red and then turned green as time went on. I noticed though that the leaves that had bite marks started to turn browny green and die off, and in that moment I was really nervous that the whole thing would die entirely. But somehow, by the grace of nature, the leaves revived themselves, they never fell off and died, and it grew back healthier than ever. I thought to myself, finally, we had a successful lychee plant growing. I did have to be weary of the winter coming soon though, because it was fast approaching, and I knew I had to take the plant inside and keep it under my grow light throughout the winter so that it wouldn't die in the freezing Canadian temperatures. But to my plant growing demise, as it sat through the winter inside, the plant unfortunately eventually began to die during the winter inside. It is a tropical plant and it needs the right conditions to grow, and unfortunately I just wasn't able to give them that in Canada, but I didn't throw it out, of course, and as soon as the summer came back around, I brought it back outside and hoped that it would grow back. But that wasn't enough for me. I was really sad, and I just wanted to grow lychees, like real lychees, in my own backyard. And since it was now that next summer, I decided to grow one last set of lychee seeds to see if I would ever be able to actually grow lychees from the plant and not just the leaves that then died. So, you know the drill. I got the seeds out, germinated them, saw the little seeds begin to ever so slightly crack open, and soon I was able to admire the beautiful tails that began to sprout out of the little bums, and as soon as the sprouts were big enough, I planted them in soil and waited patiently for our new plant to grow. Soon, it sprouted up in red and then grew a few leaves, but to my surprise, this time the leaves grew fully green. It was really cool to learn that all lychee plants look quite different in oddly satisfying ways, because soon our plant looked like this. It continued to grow, and as the summer began to end, I got very nervous. But you know what? I'm still trying my best in the midst of where I live and the options I have available to me to grow lychees true to seed. So, the moral of the story is that you can take your favorite fruit and grow the seeds into a plant. Maybe one day we'll actually grow the real fruit, but I'm not to be trusted with tropical fruits in my Canadian backyard. Just know that I guess you're stuck with me for the next 20 years until we finally get it right, because I will not stop trying.